All right, what's up, everybody? Hopefully, everyone's doing well. I know in the previous sort of type of content, it's been form stories and short form stories, talking about YouTube shorts here, but I actually do have some stories, personal ones, that I'd like to share with you. For me personally, I only have one story. However, I have multiple stories from family members and friends that I'd like to share with you. I think for this video, I'm going to share two because this is, again, a different form of video from the norm. And I want to see if I get more engagement to see if it works, if it resonates with you guys, with the audience. So let's get started. Again, I have multiple stories here, and these are all true. And let's get down to it. Okay, I'm going to start with the following story of my aunt's house. Now, this house is in Connecticut and they still live there. And I'm not going to say where they live exactly, but it's in Stamford, Connecticut, right? And they say Connecticut is the most haunted state in the United States. I think the East Coast in general is super haunted because it has so much history. Anyways, the house that they're living in to this day is still, it was built in the I think, early 1920s, somewhere around that time frame. And story goes, like they moved in 2005. And every other summer, I kid you not, there was always something happening. There's always something happening. However, for the past couple of years, nothing has really happened. So this is a story that my aunt would tell everyone every once in a while, and it's still creepy. Gives me the goosebumps whenever she repeats it. So it's a big house. I want to say there's three stories to it, or there's a large basement, a giant first floor, and then a sizable attic, pool, big yard, big entryway to the house. It's just a nice house, but it's very, very, very old, right? Story goes that when they're in the attic, I think they're just organizing a couple things, and they came across the room where they have all the boxes and whatnot. They came across a large, um, I guess, piece of wood on the floor. I guess one of the tiles or planks of wood. I don't know how you call that exactly, but it was somewhat loose. It was somewhat loose, and they started to wiggle it, and it came off, and underneath it they found this tin box filled, covered in dust. And they open it, and what do they find inside? Well, they find old newspapers. They find letters, like handwritten letters, toys, stamps. And they're like, wow, like we hit the jackpot. Maybe this can be something of value. Long story short, for that, it wasn't valuable. However, it's a piece of history that they still kept. Apart from all those things I just described that was inside the box, they found one more thing which is pivotal in the story. What they found was a family portrait, and everyone's wearing antique sort of clothes, pilgrim sort of clothes, long dresses, very ordinary colors. You can tell from the photo that it's very antique, something from the very early ages, 1930s, 1940s. Now, they didn't think much of it besides profiting from those collections or from the items that they found in the tin box. But again, the pawn shop wasn't going to give them anything. So I think it was the same night or maybe a couple of nights after, but my cousins, for whatever reason, were sleeping in the living room. Maybe they were playing video games, pulling an all nighter because they had a big TV there. And when they were sleeping in the living room late at night, my cousin supposedly woke up for no apparent reason. And when he woke up, he saw someone, a little girl, peering through the window. And this person wasn't opaque, wasn't transparent. It was as clear as day, according to what he told us. And the girl was looking through the window, and after a split second, she literally went through it and then walked into the kitchen. Now, he was freaked out, but the scariest thing is that that same girl that went through the door, that was peeking through the door, was the same girl in that family portrait that they found in that tin box inside the attic that same week. That's pretty scary stuff. And you always hear stories of when people find an antique piece of furniture or they place it inside their house and things start to happen. Like how many stories have you heard where someone will go to an antique shop or they're gifted something that they don't know where it came from, and out of nowhere weird things started to happen. Maybe that sparked up something, it woke up something paranormal, and that was the scary thing from that story. That same girl that peeked through the window, that went through it, that walked through it, with the same one from that photo. And to kind of go off on a tangent, I think it was months even after that where my grandparents, they would be in Colombia, but they would come back to the States every so often. And if they're not there, it was just a vacant room, another guest room. And my cousin would also sleep there because he would stay there for a couple months at a time. And he woke up, and I used to sleep in that room like whenever I slept over, and it gave me the jitters because it was completely pitch black. And I don't know about you guys, but of course, when you sleep in a pitch black room, you do sleep better. However, I have the sensation that something's staring at me, and I cannot tell because it's pitch black. I need some form of light, just to be perfectly honest with you. Anyways, to tell the short tell, he woke up and he saw this woman standing in front of the mirror and then just walking out, right? And this was like in the morning, so he can see a little bit. The door was slightly open, so he wasn't in complete darkness. But what he told us was that he saw this woman in very antique clothing, a long dress, dressed as she was from the 1930s, 1920s. She checked herself in the mirror and then just walked away. And that was it. That is pretty creepy. Okay, let's tell you this one other story that happened in the same house. This story was told again by my aunt. Okay, so just to give you some context here, who lives in the house or who lived in the house was my cousin, well, both my cousins, my aunt and my uncle, right? My uncle was a huge, well, my aunt and then her husband, right? Her husband was very like a huge prankster, and he's a really fun guy. Story goes, it's late at night, and only my aunt, her husband, in the house, and my aunt went to the kitchen to get some snacks, get some water, whatever it was. And when you go from their room to the kitchen, you had to go down the hall, go past the giant living room, and then into the kitchen. So it's like probably a 15-second walk, right? Quite some distance to cover. And when it's dark in there, it's dark. It's dark and it's creepy. So once she went to the kitchen, got her water, got her snack, and when she was coming back the same way, story goes that something was in the corner of the living room. And this living room is pretty darn big. I want to say it's probably like 700 square feet, maybe even bigger. And she saw someone sitting in a corner, head down, tucked in a little ball, right? And she was like, "Hey, like, babe," talking to her husband, "can you stop doing that? You're scaring the heck out of me," right? The thing didn't move. And we all think that it's the husband. Or is it? We'll see. And she's like, "Okay, like, you're really scaring me. Please get out of there. Let's go back to the bedroom and go to sleep." No response, no movement. And then for the third time, she was like, and this time she was louder, like, "Hey, can you really stop doing that? You're creeping me the hell out." And then when she screamed, her husband came in from the other side through the hall, and like she was saying to her, "Who the hell are you screaming at? I'm right here." And then she passed the little thing that was in the corner that was crawled up in the ball and went to the room. Goodness knows what that was, but she claimed that it was a figure literally crawled up in the ball sitting in a corner of the living room. Weird things have happened in the house. I get the jitters. Whenever I go through it, whenever I go to the basement, I feel like a pair of eyeballs are just laying on me, and it's the creepiest thing ever. So let me know in the comments. Let me know if you like this video, if you like these sort of stories, because these are true stories from my personal experience. So thank you so much for listening. Until next time.